Hello, everyone, and welcome to Birdview's weekly workshop. I'm excited to have you all join today. Our weekly workshops take place every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 a.m. Pacific. We cover a different topic each week, and you can register for the weekly workshops um, through our website under the events tab, or you can simply click on the link that's on the screen right now. I encourage you all to join as many of these sessions as possible in order for you to learn a lot of tips and tricks on different aspects of the system and how to make the most of Birdview for your work and for your projects. So with each session, we start off with a demo on the topic that we are covering, and then we use the last 10 minutes to go over any questions or feedback that any of you may have. So please feel free to send in your questions in the chat or simply raise your hand virtually, and we will get to those questions at the end of the demo session. Our topic today is resource management, the basics part 2. So we'll start with adding public holidays and vacation types to the system. And we'll also learn how to add available hours for our team members and how you would be able to adjust those hours for different team members as well. You'll also see how to set hourly rates for the individual users and how this is going to help automate billable labor and labor costs within the system so that you don't have to calculate it yourself. And finally, we will look at a few good to know tips and tricks on how to ensure that there are no errors and everything is being calculated accurately for the financial piece as well. All right, so you are looking at my demo account right now. Let's begin with adding public holidays and vacation types to the system. So you can do that by simply clicking on company settings here on the left-hand side of the page. Under system lists, you have the option to add vacation types as well as public holidays. Now, vacation types are typically what might be specific to your company as well. There are some companies that have certain vacation types that are not applicable to others. So these can be individually set. I do have a few in here. We have regular vacation, leave of absence, trade show, training program, etc. Most of all of these are paid vacation types as well as overtime and holiday pay vacation types. Now I'm going to add one more. Let's click on add vacation type. I can do that from right here or from up here as well. And let's say this is a travel day. I can also remove it from being a paid option or from being overtime option. And I can add as many of these as required. So when your team goes in to add their vacation into the system, they can select from this list. And the system is automatically going to detect that that team member is going to be on vacation. And so it's not going to allow you to calculate their available hours for that day when you are assigning them tasks or activities within a project. You can also add public holidays to the system. Now, these are also something that can be specific to your company or the country or the region that you live in. So we have a couple of those in here as well. I'm going to add one more, let's say Christmas. And the date can also be selected. You can also delete public holidays if you need to. So this is also going to be taken into consideration when you are looking at a calendar to add due dates to your projects. It's going to show you a shaded date for Christmas, Victoria Day, and Family Day in my system. And you can set those up for yours as well, depending on the holidays that you have individually. All right, the next thing that we want to do is learn how to add available hours to the system and also look at individual user schedules. So the first thing that you need to take into consideration is under account settings, you do have the option to add weekends as workdays within the system. So if you do that, you are able to set all 7 days as working days within the system. You can also add default hours per day. In this case, it is 8 hours per day. That will be considered working hours for my team members in the system. However, when you go to add your user's individual schedule, you do have the ability to override these settings if you need to. So let's take, for example, under users, I have a list of my team members that are in here. Brenda Valens, if I scroll right to the bottom of her profile, I can see what her personal schedule looks like for the entire week. I can make changes to this. So let's say Brenda is also working on a Sunday. I can add 8 hours here and add 8 hours there. In which case, when we look at her availability every week, it's not going to be 40 hours, but it's going to be 56 hours because I've added 16 more hours to this profile of Brenda's. Let's take another example. So for myself, I'm going to be working 10 hours from Monday to Wednesday and then 5 hours on Thursday and Friday. So I can change that in the system to indicate 10 hours each here and then 5 hours here and 5 hours here. So you can make changes to this personal schedule. You could have some team members that work just 4 days a week and additional time on those days, and yet on 3 days of the week, they aren't working at all. So this can be individually set for team members. This is also taken into consideration when you are looking at the availability at the task or project level so that you can assign according to when your team members work. The next thing we're going to look at is adding those hourly rates for our team members. Now, there are different areas in the system where you can add hourly rates. So one of those areas is at the user level. So you have two options here. You have a billing hourly rate as well as a default internal hourly rate. Now, a default internal hourly rate is something that typically doesn't change on a regular basis. It is something that stays constant for team members unless there is a pay raise or a salary hike. This is primarily defined as the salary of the person that you pay for. So let's say, let's assign my internal hourly rate to be $50 an hour. And when I'm looking at billing hourly rate, I can set that up as well, which means that whenever I work on a specific task or project and track my time, it's going to calculate the number of hours I've worked and multiply that by this billing hourly rate. And that's going to give me the rate that you will be able to bill to clients as well. So let's add this as $100. The default hourly rate is going to automatically calculate the labor costs. So that's what it's costing the company for me to be added to a project with certain number of hours involved. All right, so we have this set up for myself. You can also set up billing rates at the customer level. So if I click on customers, let's say the Melinda Gates Foundation, and I scroll down here, I can see the billing hourly rate, which means that any project that I'm working on that has the Melinda Gates Foundation assigned as the customer, this is a rate that we have negotiated, and so all the work will be at $50 per hour. You can also create rate cards, which can be defined as more like a menu of different rates that can be applied to a specific project. So in this case, let's say I'm adding a new rate card to the system. I can give this rate card a name. So let's call this rates for May as the name of the rate card. We have an effective date. So it's going to take effect or today, which is the 9th of May. A default hourly rate would be a rate that can be applied if in case that specific job role or team member is not already part of this list. So let's say $100 an hour will be the default rate for that. You can then go ahead and add your job role or your team members. So if I'm adding a job role, let's say I'm adding project manager as an option, every time anyone with the job role of project manager has been added to that project, it's going to calculate that rate for that person. Or you can even pick individual team members. So in this case, let's pick myself. My rate within this rate card is going to be $200 an hour. And let's add one more. Let's add Brenda. Brenda's rate is going to be $150 an hour. I can also select the currency. So for if you have certain clients that have multiple different currencies as part of their your billing, you can pick the currency that you would like to add, and you have the option to either duplicate this rate card and make changes to it or delete it as well. Now you also have versions for this. So a version is basically a change to these rates that need to be applicable on a certain date. It's usually something that's automated. So you don't have to jump in here. Let's say 6 months down the line, if you have a 10% increase to this, then you don't have to jump in here and make those changes manually. You can introduce a version, and that is going to come into effect on a specific date. So let's say I add a version. This is the upcoming version. Let's say the effective date for this is going to be June the 5th. Let's keep the default hourly rate the same, but let's change my rate to 220 and Brenda's to 130. So on the 6th of June, sorry, on the 5th of June, these new rates are going to be applicable automatically when we track time after this, on or after this date. You can have as many versions of a rate card as possible as you require. And I'm simply going to hit save. You can have as many rate cards as well. So it's not just one, you can keep adding rate cards and then you can apply them to projects as and when you require them. The other options you have are also to add individual rates for at a project level. So each individual project could have a different rate, and you can also do it at an activity level. So each different activity can have a different rate. All right, so now let's see how we can automate our billable labor and labor costs based on these rates that we've already added to the system. So I'm just going to jump back here to the activity center. Let's take this demo project 5 to 9 as our option. As you can see here, we have some tasks, subtasks. We have some start dates and end dates. We have duration, so we have hours in place. Days that these tasks are due. We have assignees. I'm assigned to this entire project by myself. We also have estimated hours in here. So overall, this project is 140 hours, and we have estimated hours for some of these tasks as well. And if I click on details of the project, I can see here that I've already selected the Melinda Gates Foundation as our customer for this project. All right, so if I jump now to the financials for this project, I can do that by clicking on this $sign up here. There are a number of different tabs. The first thing that we need to do is select the billing type. So under targets, you can decide whether or not this is a billable project. If you turn this off, then you can see your budget, which is basically all of your costs to work on this project. But if I turn billable on, you can see the revenue that it's generating, as well as the profit that it's generating. Now, under billing type, you do have a couple of options here as well. So in some cases, you might charge your clients a flat fee for a project. Doesn't matter what your cost is or any expenses that may come in, you might just have flat fee, which in which case you don't have to worry about tracking time to bill a client or tracking hours to bill a client. It's more for you to understand what your cost is. And so if I click on project flat fee, I'm only going to see budgets and I'm going to see profit. I'm not going to see revenue. But with time and material, you can bill a client based on the hours that your team is working on that project, as well as any expenses that might be added to it. You do have a few options in here as well. Resource hourly rate is the rate that we have set up for our individual users. So if I look here at my labor cost, it's basically going to calculate the 140 hours by the internal hourly rate for the users that have been assigned to this project. So in this case, I've been assigned to this project. My internal hourly rate, if you remember, was $50 an hour. This project is 140 hours. And so it's calculating what it's costing this company to have me work on this project for these 140 hours. That's an automated calculation. And when we look at billable labor, my billing hourly rate was $100 an hour into 140 hours. And so this is what we will charge the client for my work on this project. Now, the other option is for you to use the customer hourly rate. As you notice here, the labor cost is not going to change because we are looking at an internal hourly rate, but your billable labor is changing based on the Melinda Gates Foundation's decided rate that we have set, which was $50 an hour. You can also do it for an activity rate, which means that you will set a separate rate for each activity within this project, as well as if you had set a rate for the project overall, this is what it would look like. And you can also select your rate card. It does let you know that the currency for this project is then taken from the chosen rate card, which means that you cannot change the currency in this case. Now let's go ahead and select rates for me. That's the rate card that we had created. And as you can see here, your billable labor automatically changes based on that. Labor cost remains the same. And you can check your, if we were to set up the profits, you can look at that as well. So this is how easy it is for the system to go ahead and calculate your labor, billable labor, as well as your labor cost with just you making those few selections. Now, some of the things that are good to know within the system, one is it's very important to be able to select that billing type and what your project billing is based on, just in order to avoid issues. If you do select a resource hourly rate or a customer hourly rate, you aren't able to change it for individual activities unless you select activity rates. The other thing to keep in mind when it comes to scheduling hours on weekends is that the system is going to take that selection into consideration when it's allowing you to create tasks and add those due dates. So right now, we don't have weekends as workdays in the system. So when I add dates to my tasks or my activities, I can only see these available dates, which is weekdays. So I can't have a task start or end on a weekend in this case. Neither can I have that task start or end on the public holiday, which is set within the system, which is the 22nd of May. However, if I jump to company settings and under company schedule, if I treat weekends as work days, that's going to allow me to have these open. So the weekends, so Saturday and Sunday, do become available for me to schedule tasks to start or end. This 22nd is still going to be shaded off because it is a public holiday and is not part of that available selection. All right, so I see here that I did see some hands up during the demo. Do we have any questions that you'd like to address right now? Class has a question. Can you set different rates for Saturday and Sundays? Fabian, can you go ahead and give classes answer?
I'm not too sure what that is in context to, but are you talking about that on a weekend you have a unique rate versus weekdays? Is that if that is what the question is directed to? No, you can't quite set that up. It is just based on the resource rate. It is not based on a day of the week. Okay. Then the next question is, how do you get to financials again? Denise, perhaps you can take that one for Bob.
Yes. So Bob, if you're looking at financials for the project, you simply click on details. And right here at the top, you have this dollar sign up here. So you click on that and you are taken to your financials page. I'm on the targets side of it. However, if I jump to an overview, you can also see an overview of all of the financials so far in the system. These are also automated calculations. So you can look at labor costs, billable labor. If you add expenses to the system, it's going to also show up right here. And you have a short snippet of your targets, revenue and budgets and profits right here as well. All right, does anyone have any other questions that they would like to ask right now on this session? All right, so our topic for next week is understanding Birdview's resource loading view. So we'll take a look at how hours are split into different days for individual users, and also how to front load and backload hours when you assign hours to your team members. And on the 23rd of May, we'll dive deeper into the resource loading simulator, which will help you plan for projects that are coming up in the future. So once again, you can sign up for our webinar, our workshop sessions on the website under the events tab, or you can click on the link on the screen. You do have the option to sign up for multiple at one time, so you don't have to jump in every week and sign up for them individually. Thanks everyone for joining today. I hope that this session was helpful. Your suggestions are always welcome. So if you have any recommendations for topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, please do send in your responses to the success email that's on the screen right now. If you have questions that you'd still like to get answered from this session, or any questions on anything else as well, please feel free to send in those responses. Great. Have a great day, everyone. See you next week.